Have you ever been a few weeks into a fat loss phase, stepped in front of the mirror and thought, why do I look smaller and somehow fatter? Maybe your pumps have disappeared, your muscles don't pop anymore, and you're getting weaker in the gym. And you start wondering if all your hard work is actually making you lose muscle instead of fat. But here's the good news. If that's happening to you, it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing anything wrong. What I found over the last few years, after spending countless hours studying fat loss and testing different strategies on myself and others, I found that almost everyone goes through this stage, but very few people understand what's actually happening. So, in this video, I'll explain why you look worse during a cut, why this is the stage where most people quit, and most importantly, exactly what you should do to push through it and come out looking leaner, fuller, and better than ever. So basically, what happened is that you became flat. Now, what does flat actually mean? Before I talk about how to fix it, let's first understand what's happening. When people say they feel flat, they're talking about the stage in a fat loss phase where their muscles suddenly look smaller, softer, and less full. They feel skinny, basically. Your pump isn't the same, your shirts don't fit the same way they used to, right? And when you look in the mirror, it almost feels like you're losing the muscle you've worked so hard to build. But the good news is that most of the time you're not just losing muscle. You're simply carrying less glycogen inside your muscles. Now, what is glycogen? Glycogen is the stored form of carbohydrates, right? And every gram of glycogen holds several grams of water. So when you're dieting and eating fewer calories, especially fewer carbohydrates, your glycogen stores gradually decrease. Less glycogen means less water inside the muscles, right? And less water means your muscles temporarily look smaller. That's what being flat is, right? You feel skinny. Now, why is this the stage where most people quit? Now, here's where people make a huge mistake, right? They look worse than they did 2 weeks ago, right? Their performance is decreasing. The problem is that they immediately assume that, oh my god, I'm losing muscle, my diet isn't working, I should stop cutting. But in reality, they often quit right before they start looking really lean. Remember, body fat doesn't disappear evenly. Sometimes you lose fat without noticing much visual change because muscles because your muscles are flatter at the same time. But once you get lean enough or after a proper refeed, which we're gonna talk about in a second, your physique often looks dramatically better. And the people who get shredded aren't the people who never experience this stage. They're the people who understand it and keep going anyway. Now, could you lose muscle during a cut? Absolutely, but that's usually because you're making one of these mistakes. You're eating too little protein, your calorie deficit is too aggressive, you're not lifting weights, your health isn't in the right place, and you're no longer challenging your muscles, or your recovery is just terrible. But if you're still training hard, eating enough protein, sleeping well, and your strength is staying relatively stable, then chances are you're holding on to most of your muscle. Right? Feeling a little weaker is normal because you're eating less and carrying less stored energy. That's very different from losing muscle. So, if I was going through this, what would I actually do? First, I'd stay patient, right? This stage is temporary, it's not gonna last forever. Second, I'd continue lifting heavy. Your body keeps and even grows muscles when it has a reason to do so. Third, I'd keep my protein high, aim for around 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight every day, or zero point 0.7 to 1 grams of protein per pound of body weight. Fourth, I'd prioritize recovery. The better you recover, the better you preserve muscles the better you recover, the better you preserve muscle while dieting. And finally, stop judging your progress based on one mirror check or one workout. Use weekly progress photos and track your body weight averages. That's very important. That's how you know if you're actually losing fat. If your weight goes down based on your average, right? So you should be tracking your body weight basically every single day and make an average of at the end of the week. And let's say you do this for 2 weeks. If the average you made in the first week is bigger than the average you made in the second week, then that means you're making progress basically. I hope you get what I'm saying. Right, you have to look at the trend over time, not just how you looked after one bad night's sleep or one low carb day. That's what truly matters. Are you making progress? And I'll repeat it one more time. If you're still training hard, eating enough protein, sleeping well, you're taking care of your health, and your strength is staying relatively stable, then most probably you're making progress. And if you're making progress, the absolute worst thing you can do is change the system that's already working. Right? Stop being emotional and keep doing the same things on repeat until you get to the desired body fat percentage. Now, if you're going through this stage, that means that that means that the calorie deficit is working. You have to understand that it takes time. Give it time. You will look worse before you look better. I want you to remember this because it might be the most important thing you hear today. You will probably look worse before you look better. It's just a part of the process, right? Your body didn't become. If we had to think about it logically, right? Your body didn't become overweight in a month. Maybe it took 5 years, maybe 10. You're not gonna reverse years of bad habits in a few weeks. Great physiques aren't built by people who never doubt themselves. They're built by people who keep going even when the mirror lies to them. It's a long term process. You don't just get a six pack in a few weeks. It takes time and it's gonna be very hard. You can't undo years of damage in a few months. And fat loss isn't only about the technical stuff. Making sure you're healthy, sleeping and eating good. And of course, not skipping workouts. Sometimes it's also about the mindset, as well as not letting your emotions get involved. And I tell this to all the guys that I help get in shape. You need to have the mindset of a scientist. A scientist makes decisions based on data, not on his emotions. Someone with the someone with the scientist mindset wouldn't change the workout program every 2 weeks. He wouldn't start starving himself because he stepped on the scale at the end of the day and somehow arrived at the conclusion that he gained fat. You will look worse before you look better, and I want you to internalize this. I want you to remember this throughout your journey. And I have a bonus tip for you here, but hear me out. This is only for people that are around 15% body fat, meaning you have visible abs, but you want to get 10%. You want to get even leaner. So if you've been dieting for a long time, you're starting to feel flat and you're not making as much progress as you used to in the gym, a properly planned high carbohydrate refeed can temporarily refill your glycogen stores. Your muscles will look fuller and your gym performance may improve. And even mentally, it can make sticking to the diet much easier. But just remember that a refeed isn't an excuse to binge. It's just a strategy. It's not a cheat day. So what you're going to do is eat at maintenance calories for 2 to 3 days. That's it. You're going to do that by increasing your carb intake. For example, if you've been sitting in a 500 calorie deficit and your maintenance calories are 3000, for example, then you should increase your daily calories from 2500 to 3000 with carbs for 2 to 3 days. So in this case, that would mean to add around 120 grams of carbs on top of your regular intake, because 120 grams of carbs is around 500 calories. Now, a refeed isn't actually necessary, but if you, it basically it helps mentally. Key word here, mentally, because it gives you a break from the diet and it helps to lower cortisol. And this can be used as a tool for mental sustainability, right? Again, this is only if you're around 15% body fat, meaning you have visible abs, but you want to get to 10%, right? You want to get even leaner. And I will repeat this again. If you're not 15% body fat, you should forget about refeeds, because any attempt of increasing calories might backfire and mess up with the fat loss process, since your insulin sensitivity is too low. You will ruin your progress if you don't have visible abs and decide to do a refeed, because your glycogen stores will get replenished and you will have to deplete them again, so your body starts using fat as the main energy source instead of carbs. At the end of the day, being flat isn't a sign that you're failing. In many cases, it's simply just a sign that your body is adapting to the calorie deficit. This is a sign that it's working. And the biggest mistake you can make is quit. Because if you stay consistent, if you keep lifting, if you keep your protein high, and if you don't overtrain, if you trust the process, and if you focus on your health, a good looking body is just the result of focusing on your health. The physique you're chasing is usually much closer than you think. You look worse before you look better. So don't quit before the transformation happens. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video. I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.